I recently
Yeah.
learned through a book called Planet Canada, written by one of our members of our C100 community, John Stackhouse, who's now chief of staff to RBC's CEO and was the chief of editor in chief of the Globe and Mail for a decade or so. Um, that like the vice chancellor of I think it's Cambridge or Oxford. I could be messing that up here.
Yeah.
Is a Canadian. It's like at the
Yeah.
highest institution in academia, there's a Canadian at the top. Like, and then to put it out there, Kamala Harris went to school in Canada as well. Like, there, there's interesting Canadian threads that like lead people to like the top of top of organizations. And as you know, I have a fund focused on investing in this group of people. I'm also trying to figure out why is that? Like, what is that makes us unique? Our value system. How can we look at problems slightly differently because of where we're from, or not? I don't know. Is there
I
any
think there's
approach you? Yeah, yeah,
yeah. It's fascinating to me. I often hear about American exceptionalism and this idea that there's something inherent about America that makes it better.
okay,
And I've never heard people talk about Canadian exceptionalism. It's just not part of the lexicon of Canadian, right?
yeah.
But there is something that's
There
unique about
is,
Canada that
yeah,
does make it yield superior outcomes. And
interesting.
that is this, I think it's this embracing of diversity, right? This embracing of Canada is this patchwork of folks who come from all over the world who have retained what's really special about where they've come from, and they've invested together into the country, into each other, to make this incredible community and this incredible country. And it yields um, this exceptional sense of both a sense of self that people can still truly embrace, that they don't feel like they have to compromise that for assimilating into a whole. But they also feel generally, and this is it's broad strokes,
It's
right?
broad. Yeah,
There
yep.
also is a sense of community still that exists. And this is something that America has wrestled with for a very long time. How do you maintain a sense of national identity while still rewarding and prizing the differences among people or between
Ah,
people,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And
Nicely said.
if you look back at a lot of it's thought as being like the gains for a country are zero sum inside the United States. That I don't want X because that means I have to give up something for somebody else, right? And then if you look back at like a lot of the history of the United States, especially when it comes to race, if you look back that a lot of the great investments, right? All these things that the United States used to think of as free, and Canada still actually prizes as being free. Things like investing in education, right? Universities spending on public education. It was much higher in the 50s and then the early 60s. There is a sense that everyone should have a right to a job. That was a view in the 60s, right? All those thoughts started to go away in the United States in between like 1960 and 1970, right? If you look at what percentage of Americans thought that the government should guarantee everyone a job, it was something like 60% in 1960. By 1965, 1970, it was down to 35%. And this is all related to the civil rights movement, right? People were saying like, oh, if I have to give up, I don't want to give it for everybody. I'm not giving everybody a job. It's just the privileged groups would keep having jobs, but not everybody else. We're not sharing that. In Canada, there's still this view of the collective whole. It's that if my brother or sister succeeds, I succeed generally. And so it's like it actually leads to a rising of the social safety net where, you know what, I think it's actually beneficial if everybody is educated, if everybody has healthcare. Me giving this person healthcare doesn't mean that I have to diminish my own healthcare. I'm not going to go sick because my neighbor has care. My kid's not going to be dumb because my neighbor's kid is educated, right? That's a silly way of thinking. But like that is something that Canada somehow has maintained a belief in, despite this incredible diversity of people. When people look out at their neighbor, they're like, that neighbor doesn't necessarily look like me. They don't necessarily speak the same language as me. They didn't have the same history as me, but I still want them to be healthy and I still want their kids to be educated. Right?
I love
That's
it.
really unique.
I love it.
And that kind of that kind of belief and that kind of conviction is something that I think a lot of the world could benefit from.
Yeah, and when you bring that to
what happened,
problems.
especially in the last 4 years, not just in the United States, but so many other countries have had a real challenge with this. Whereas Canada's hadn't really, and sometimes there's questions in Canada about the details of how it works, and maybe a little bit less, and pull and tug here and there. But overall, it's worked pretty well, and that's something I think that Canadians can export with pride, where it's not generally that Canadians boast and brag and talk about Canadian exceptionalism again, but that's a place where Canada should share some of its exceptionalism with the rest of the world and no longer be the exception.